Brett Finch Uncensored, proudly brought to you by PointsBet. Check out PointsBet's great odds and offers. Download the PointsBet apps today and gamble responsibly. G'day guys, Brett Finch Uncensored. Next guest is poor Mary Mcgregor. Mary was fantastic letting us open his house. We come down and had a chat to him. He's obviously had a really tough year with the Dragons, but he opened his doors to his house on the beach down the south coast, and this is what he had to say. Hope you enjoy. Joining me on Uncensored, one of the most popular guys in rugby league, former Dragons coach, former international, former Origin star, poor Mary Mcgregor. How you going, mate?
Good, thanks, mate.
What about this setup you've got here, this place here? What's the suburb called? How do you pronounce it?
Chorogi.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's 5 minutes north of Wollongong, mate.
We lobbed up. You're at the front just having a coffee, and about 48 people walking on that cycle path. Mary. It's like the Queen sitting on the throne, just waving to all the locals going past. What a beautiful spot.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, mate. I rode a push bike in '98 along the bike track, and didn't really. I only lived in Dapto and Wollongong most of my life, and just rode by and thought it's not a bad spot, and then I took Nicole out and showed her, and a year later we're building on it, mate, and we're still here. So it's been a terrific place for the kids to be brought up, like on the beach, on the water.
Did you get in the surf much?
Not enough. Yeah. I will get a lot more of it because I've got a bit of time on my hands. But my young bloke, he's got about 10 boards in the garage. He surfs every day. I've got 2 boards. I've got a longboard and a short board.
How old's the kids?
22 and 24. Son's 22.
Yeah, we helped the young fella coming home here. He's on a date or something. He's ready to come back and have a swim at my house and just comes back here. That's all.
Yeah, he's going okay.
Yeah. Because I don't think of that because I know his dad would have thought the same thing. Mate, like you said, you grew up in the Gong. What was that like? I'd assume, I grew up in Newcastle. They seem very, very similar towns.
Still city.
Yeah.
But in saying that, we're between the mountains and the sea. It's called heaven, mate. It's a really relaxed lifestyle. It's a city, but it's a country town, mate. There's no traffic jams. There's no everyone knows who you are, but they still give you your own time and don't get in your business too much. We look after one another down here, so it's a really relaxed lifestyle of growing up. If it takes you 5 minutes. When it should take you 5 minutes, that's how long it takes you to get somewhere. Everyone knows you by name. Not many things that you can't like about the Gong, mate.
I know I drove down here and coming down Bulleye Pass, and the missus goes, I'd love to live down here. I said, I was doing another $5 million, I'll be able to buy the house next door to Mary's. But, mate, Dapto, I was just saying that coming down, I played a game at Dapto in Newcastle junior rep teams. I think it was under 13s. We got billeted at Thirroul. It was one of the most harrowing experiences in my life. That the old man, I could hear the door open about 4:30 in the morning. The old man's coming in the door, and I don't know what he's going to do. The old man, well, he's woken me up and goes, "Let's go check the surf out. Let's go for a surf." He didn't wake his son up. He woke me up and took me down to the beach.
Was he playing on the other side? His son?
Yeah, his son was the other halfback.
100%.
Exactly.
He's doing the right
so we
thing.
got billeted in the opposition number.
Did he take a surfboard with him? That's
no,
the thing.
we just walked down there to check the surf. I checked and I went back to bed. It was freezing cold, middle of winter. And then the game we played ended up breaking my arm, and I've never been to Dapto. I've punted on the Dapto grounds, but never been to Dapto again. But you spent a fair bit of your juniors there at Dapto, was it? Dapto Canaries.
Dapto Canaries, mate, yeah. Moved to Dapto when I was 10. Just in the house commission house with mum and dad. They worked very hard all their life, what we had, and went to Dapto High. Enjoyed my childhood, played Aussie Rules Rugby League on the same day. We had an Aussie Rules field pretty close by. So I doubled up on the day most weekends. And, it was just, again, I got some lifetime friends out of that as well, It's, one thing about sport, it builds friendships forever, and that's what I have. One of my best mates, Lance Green, he owns a coffee shop now around the corner from where I live. We grew up together playing footy.
Does he charge you for coffees?
He actually does. He goes, as soon as you get out of the bubble, come for breakfast, and it cost me 70.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go back in the bubble, thanks. You said you play AFL, and did you follow in AFL or was it more league?
I followed North Melbourne.
The Kangas?
Yeah, the Kangas. But Gary Abbott was the god back then. He was.
What made you follow AFL?
He was Geelong. Oh, because I played it.
Yeah. Well, there's not too many kids would have been playing AFL in Wollongong.
In Dapto there was. They had a
it?
competition, they had a healthy competition at juniors and seniors and grade, and there was probably only, I think it was 4 or 6 teams that played, but it was pretty...
Were you full forward?
I was a little bit of everything. I was
you would have loved the old hip and shoot. You'd have been loved take blindside blokes taking a few out.
So I moved around a bit, but it was actually... I went on a trip last year to New York in a leadership immersion group, and there was actually 4 players that used to play for AFL that have now become assistant coaches. One was used to be a head coach, and we talked AFL forever, because I knew the game quite well. They were quite amazed, but it's a better game to watch.
Yeah, I loved it
live than it is on TV, because you get an understanding of really how hard they work off the footy.
Well, that's what. Especially I found that too. When you watch it on TV and you look at half time the disposal, someone might have touched the ball 4 times and, geez, he's not having a good game. But you watch it live, the poor bastard's run about 25 k's in the court. He just can't get his hands on it. Mate, the Steelers. Where were your Steelers? Did you want to play for the Steelers when you were growing up? Were the Steelers big? Were they your team?
Yeah, no, St. George's was my team.
Yeah.
When I was growing up. My idol was Changa.
Yeah.
He was a person that he's from Wollongong, played for St. George, elite of the elite. Skinny fullback, great step, goal kicker. So he was the first guy that I really followed, which he was obviously playing for St. George at the time. And then the Steelers come along in 82. And then before that, in 78, Steve Morris actually...
Yeah, Slippery.
Yeah, Slippery come from Dapto and made his way to his Australian team from Dapto, which is really rare.
Yeah, rare.
So I was only young.
And he would have won. He was halfback in the '79 Dragons team.
Correct. So I followed Slippery then because obviously from the hometown and doing what he done was such a great achievement. Yeah. And then after following Slippery, he obviously went to St. George, and then the other one I really liked was Steve Rogers. I just loved the way he played.
Well, my dad says he was the best player he's seen.
Okay, yeah.
He obviously when you talk great centres, there's Mal and Reg Gasnier, Changa, but Dad always says, Steve Rogers.
Yeah, he just moved well, and he was anticipated everything before it happened. Yeah. So look, and then obviously as I got close to playing grade, I spent 5 years of first grade at Dapto before I went into town, and the Steelers come calling, and I rejected the offer a few times.
Yeah, why was that? I was looking back like. How old were you? 22, 20? When
22, yeah.
Why?
That's a good question.
Why did it take so long? You just happy to play with your mates?
Bit of foff. I was a bit of fear of failure.
Yeah.
I was working, shift work in the steelworks, getting paid well. I was getting paid well at the club at Dapto. We were doing quite well. I was around my mates. The weekend started Thursday, finished Sunday night. In between that, you played a game of footy. I hadn't been in the gym. I was 20-year-old, never been in a gym. Just really liked the game. Grew up playing the game on the street, cricket, footy, and then me juniors really started to commit myself a little bit more.
You must have been pretty dominant at
the
local competition.
Everyone kept. I got asked to go to England.
Yeah,
I got asked to go to back then it was Balmain.
Yeah,
Bobby Millward asked me in. Actually, no, go back a step. He stopped me playing in 89 for the local league unless I come in because they had the right to, if you're a local junior playing in a local competition and Illawarra wanted to call upon you, you had to go in. And I kept saying no, and then they stopped me from playing.
You're like Ali.
So they ended up
stopping me.
I'm definitely not that. This is at local league. But they actually stopped me playing. So I went in.
Because you wouldn't go in to play for the Steelers?
Because I wouldn't go in there.
That's ridiculous.
So I went in 89. I played a reserve grade game, scored 2 tries, left within 5 minutes of first grade. I was back out home. So, and then Bob offered me a contract. Bob and Neil Lovett was at the time. They offered me a contract the first year, which was $14K. Back then it was okay.
It was a lot when I was there too. I didn't get much for it.
and then the year I said no, thanks, but no thanks. Then it was $10K. And then the year after that, it was $7K, and I ended up taking 5. So
you cost yourself.
It's cost myself, but I really, I think I got the balance right. I think I got the balance right in the end, Finch. I probably missed out on playing a lot more NRL or ARL back then when I did, but I think I got more rounded with the 5 years of playing bush footy. There was a lot of hard-nosed people come back and play first grade that finished careers
probably
in
might
Sydney.
have been a bit quicker the NRL, but it's just as tough, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was playing first grade at 18, and it was pretty brutal, to be honest. And the competitions were pretty fierce, and you had them guys coming back and banging hard. So, I really enjoyed that. Plus, I got to live. Yeah. Like the kids these days, they're out of school straight into professional sport, and they really scrutinising everything they do in their life. Where back then you could actually, I got to live a normal kid's life without the side effects of making sure that I couldn't do this and couldn't do that because of professionalism, and then I still got to taste the professionalism.
Yeah, best of
both.
Pretty
good, mate. Yeah.
So you signed in 91, and we'll break it down, but just to your impact on the game, and so 92 the Steelers make the finals for the first time, and you're a big part of that. 92 you play Origin, 93 you play Origin, 94 you're a part of them, one of the most successful New South Wales eras ever. 94 you play your first Test match. So you go from playing Dapto within 2 years, you're an international, you're a starter in New South Wales, one of the greatest squads ever, and you're part of a Steelers team that's plays their first semi-final series. You didn't muck around.
Yeah, no. I was probably at the right age after all them years at that day.
But still, to go from you saying the fear of failure to you didn't dip your toe in. You went in head first and made it. You didn't take long to warm up and get up to speed with it all.
No, the transition, the hardest transition was the training. Yeah. Like, give me a football and I can play. Yeah. The training side of it was challenging because I'd never really expressed myself that I wanted to do weights. And at Dapto, I didn't have to do too much training to be okay on the weekend. And in between that, there was plenty of good times that happened, as I said, from Thursday to Sunday. So, but all the players that were playing, it was Skiff, Pincho, Russo, Riolo, Gerds, Crossy, Rodwell. I'd played against most of them guys in junior footy or whatever, so I knew I could be okay. Had a great coach in Mars. I played one reserve grade game my whole life. That's all I played, and it was the first one. It was against Penrith in '91. They just won the comp. Yeah. And I played first grade that day. Someone got injured. I played reserve grade, backed up, sat on the bench the old days, and
never played reserve grade.
I never played reserve grade game again. So Muzz really had trust in me. He was a guy that, ended up convincing me to come to the Steelers, and I trained pretty hard in the off season. I gave everything away for 9 months. I didn't have a drink. And really dedicated.
That must have been hard for you.
It was back then because everyone enjoyed it.
Of course it is.
And you were still working. You were still going to work.
George Best said he give up alcohol and women was the worst 20 minutes of his life. So he did it for 9 months.
But, that was when we went to work and then went to train in the afternoon.
Muzz was a big part of that. Like, I know I had a bit to do with Muzz at the Mariners. Yeah. And his Origin. You were in there. And then the Cowboys. But I never really played under Muzz week to week. They say he's a great players coach.
Like, I had some good coaches technically and tactically in Alan McMahon and David Waite, blokes like Gus and Bozo and things like that. But Muzz was a person that just really got you excited about playing, and believed in what you could bring. Yep. And, I was fortunate when I come in 91, I started playing okay. I made the city team after 4 weeks, which was not country, believe it. So there was country.
There's 4 weeks of actually playing just
playing
senior footy.
Yeah. So it was country Origin and city Origin, and that was the best 26 players in New South Wales pretty well. And then they had a country team play against the city first team. So I made the city first team. I didn't make the main side, but city first side.
You're in the top 26.
Which I was playing with blokes like Blocker and things like that who were at the back end of their career but started mine. And it was just a great experience. And then we built really well in the 91 season, and a lot of young guys would be starting to become good.
When did the Steelers come 91?
I think we won 5 of our last 7 games, so it wasn't probably the start, but it was really coming home okay. We started 92 winning the Tooheys Challenge against Brisbane.
Brisbane.
4-2 or something. It was
the old quarters, wasn't it?
real tough game, and it was pretty serious footy back then. Everyone, you wanted to win that competition. Everyone played to get ready for the main competition, and then we, the first half of the year started playing, and Gus got the Origin gig, and he wanted to make change, so he picked the side that he thought was the one that was going to win.
Did you think there any chance?
I had a couple of good games leading up to it, and there was a little bit of talk around it, but no, not really, because there was established centres already there. But they had lost 4 of the 5 years prior to Gus coming in. And when Gus came in, he made a statement and had 5 people debuting, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them guys. And the unfortunate side of it, I was up against Mal, who was on the other side of it. So, which was, he was.
Well, that in itself is a fair rap to pick you on debut, knowing you're going up against.
Yeah,
one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, we had a fair team too, but I think so. I played well against Mal the previous year, and that probably gave Gus a little bit of confidence. And I had some really good games leading into the first Origin, and obviously that I think Sparkles was the centre the year before, and he was getting a little bit on, and they wanted to make a bit of a change there. So, but it's worked out all right because we won 5 of the next 6 series, and real dominant. We won the next 3, 92, 93, 94. Got beat in 95, which was another story, which was the non-Super League players couldn't be selected. Then won 96, 97. So, it was a pretty good time, mate.
Well, we'll get to that side in a minute, that Origin period. But back to the Steelers. He's one game away from a grand final. I think the Dragons go down to the Dragons. I remember this because I was ball boy at the Knights, and it was the Knights' first semi-final period. So the Knights smashed South in 4th, 1st, 5th. You boys just finished 2nd?
No, we finished 3rd. But
so you beat Dragons first week?
First week.
And then the Dragons beat the Knights 3-2, I think. And then they play you guys to go. So he's playing Brisbane.
Yeah, so we got beaten by Brisbane. We led Brisbane 12-0 to go through, and Brisbane obviously were a very dominant side in the 90s. Like they were a superstar team with just talent.
Do you reckon they've been under the cap these days? Only about 15 international.
Well, it's the same as in '99. We'll talk about that. But so really, what happened then was we got beaten by Brisbane. We went back to play Saints after we were pretty dominant against Saints in the first semi, and the winner of that went through the grand final. Now, we got beaten, I think it was 4-2. Back then, it was nothing in it. We crossed the line 4 times. Like, I'm going, how can we not be winning this game? But we didn't, and I thought we could have. I'm not sure we would have beat Brisbane, but I know it would have been a good contest.
It's funny how the teams, like the Dragons never really seemed to, no matter what happened to scoreline or where it was in the game against Brisbane, you always felt Brisbane, where it's like the Fraser, Ali, Foreman, like one beats the other, and like you guys could have given them a shake. You just worried Brisbane more than the Dragons did, but then the Dragons would beat.
We had beaten Brisbane leading up to that, and only got just beaten in Brisbane that year, and then led them 12-0. Yeah. So we sort of had a little bit, some teams just
the matchups,
and all of a sudden, players just don't like playing other teams, and
that was for end of my career. That was every week.
Well,
but mate, we'll go to Origin. When you this is my era. I remember best as a kid. The 92 to 94. Loz was made captain, I think 92.
Yep.
He was young himself, but Freddie was my hero. There was sticky sledging and spitting on everyone. Just firing away. Clyde, Sirinen, Chief, Lazo, Benny, Timmy, E.T.,
Cartwright,
Timmy Brush, Cardi.
Cement,
the list
Brash.
goes on. First of all, you make an instant impact in terms of just individual performance. Did it take long? Because I only played a few games of Origin, but and I never felt settled in the 3 games. And you see people, they say it takes a few years to get settled. You certainly hit the ground running even at this level.
Yeah, I think them players that you spoke about just then really give you confidence. Yeah. When you look to your left and right and you've got the names that we just spoke about, they obviously give you belief, and all you need to do is your role within that group. And all I wanted to do was make sure I didn't let anyone down. That's all I cared about. I didn't really care about who I was playing against. I knew who I was playing against, and I knew it was Peter Jackson and Mal, the 2 centres at the time, and I was comfortable because I played against them club footy, I knew this was a different beast. Origin obviously is, but I was very confident in what Gus wanted from me, and he made it quite clear what he needed. And all I knew if I'd done my role, these guys around me, you know, you poor Harrigans, you're talking about, they'd do all the hard and they'd do all the hard work. I just had to make sure that my job was done.
Mate, Gus has these guys at Origin, and now Gus obviously had a different sort of. He had that first era there with you guys, and then he come back around 03 and 04, and I played in 04, but I remember talking about this before the decider, Freddie's last game. I think he picked Gaz and Coops, a couple of all these old. He says he has Origin players where when he needs to, you know, line in the stand, you might be the best centre, but I'm going with this bloke. You know, for example, Ciro. You know, back 94, he wasn't his back end of his career, but Origin he always
delivered,
aimed up. You know, Salvo, Cardi, like all these blokes. You soon become one of Gus's boys pretty quickly. You know, and if anyone knows Origin, it's Gus. From coming out of that day to then all of a sudden being an automatic selection.
Well, he's a very good motivator, Gus, and he just got you to feel comfortable. Yeah. And when you feel comfortable in doing anything, you go out and achieve it. So, just the conversations you have, and you're sitting on a bus and he'll sit next to you, or you're just walking down to train and he'll have a walk next year. And he was footy IQ above others. And so you just knew what your role you needed to play. And every time you went into camp, it just fell into, he got everyone to play for one another. And Origin wasn't, he built his dynasty on sticking hard together and making sure that the bloke beside you is covered.
Yeah, I remember a couple of players I played, their names will remain off book for this, but they had the team bonding session. You would probably been in this series. I think it was 96.
Actually, no, I broke my arm in 96.
And two of the players, they've happened to go out and they've picked up a couple of young friends and they're back at these young friends' house. Anyway, they've got back to the camp for the team meeting next morning. They're back late. They've slept over at the newfound friend's house. And they've got back in late. They're about 15 minutes late. And Gus has called one of them out and goes, "Why are you late?" And the player A goes, "Well, mate, player B has picked up a young lady and I didn't want to leave him on his own. And I was trying to get out of him. I was telling him, come on, we've got to go, but I just couldn't leave him on his own, so I stuck with him. Sorry, mate, but it was his fault. I couldn't get rid." He said, "Right, thanks for that." So then he calls out player B and said, "Why were you late?" And the player B reverses it and goes, "Well, player A." They've both thrown each other in. And Gus comes in front of the meeting and goes, "Look, we've got a problem. We've had two players late for they were out with some young ladies on the drink."
I'd have a good guess who they were.
Yeah, and they go, and he goes, "But you know what? Neither of them left each other's side to the finish. They stuck together, and that's what we're all about." And all the boys are thinking, "Oh, Gus is going to go off." We sort of talking about that, sticking together.
That was a series actually when they had a few blokes injured. I think Jimmy Dimmick was a player that was injured that year and never that series and never played much footy, but he'd always pick him. He'd just pick him because it was like, we're staying together for this series and we're going to get it done, and they did. Unfortunately, that one I broke my arm leading up to that game.
What was that? Just say behind the scenes. Obviously, winning those games with those sort of players, but now you look at the Stewarts, the Dailies, the Clydes. These blokes have been they're the cream of the NRL crop. And around '94, they're winning. They've won 2 or 3 premierships already. What was it like mixing with those guys behind the scenes?
Yeah,
seeing how they operate. And how they
that was a big learning curve because although I had a few good players in and around Steelers back then, like Rod Wishart was in that mix from probably '89. McIndoe had been there. Bobby Linder joined the club, so he'd been there. But generally, most of the guys were just really good NRL players and hadn't tasted representative footy. So to get in that arena and to mix with them on a daily basis and see what the professionalism they go through before they actually get to play was a real learning for me, and it was enjoyable. I had different roomies. Me and Loz become really tight mates. We played on the same side of the field. We still have good friendship today from then. You get inspiration when you see blokes like Lazo playing 80 minutes in Origin. Like he's a front rower that to be honest, when he takes his shirt off, it don't look that good, but he gets it done. Because he's got a heart and a head, and then you look like when momentum shifts, Sticky with a kick. Yeah. Clyde getting behind the ball on play 2, carting it forward, a bit like Gal done in his career, they're inspirational people. Yeah. And when they play, they bring a level that just makes you so, you want to do more. Yeah. And Freddie was the opposite. Freddie was just a gifted athlete that become one of them guys. Yeah. But I remember in Origin talking about gun players because Freddie will go down as one of the best players that played. But there was about 3 minutes to go. We're in front and I was going in the carry and he goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Mate, I've got to carry the footy out of here." He goes, "No, you don't. You've got to play in 2 weeks' time. Get out of there. Leave it to someone else." I went, "Well, is that how it works?"
Let one of the battlers off the bench have a run. I remember the first game of the MCG. It was like 100,000, I think 94. I think 114 something. Lazo scored off a little, and you scored under the sticks.
Yeah.
I think Sticky put.
Yeah, Sticky put me away. Yeah.
And we see games now. Obviously, it's 99 with the Homebush. There's crowds up around 90, 80,000.
Playing that one too.
But like the first one, like that's. Yeah, we had the footy stadium at footy stadium. Then was 40,000. We used to go down to Melbourne. It's 100,000. League had never played in front of anything like that, and you've scored a try as well. That must have been.
Yeah, look, it was good. It was a planned move actually. It was a bit of Gus Genius there. He came up with a couple of different options, and I was lucky enough to be on the back end of one of them. Scored on the post. Yeah. We won the game. It was memorable because it was a full house, and it was the first time the footy had been played down there. The build-up was really different because we were staying in Melbourne, and the weather was shifty. It'd be nice, sunny, then it'd be raining, then it'd be cold, then it'd be sunny again. But the crowd, it was just a different crowd. Like the ball was kicked, then there'd be a real sing in the crowd, and someone would catch a nice ball, and they'd love the contact of it too. But it was far enough away for you not to be disturbed too much out in the middle, so you could still hear a fair bit. Where if you go 40,000 at the footy stadium, you'd have to scream to someone to hear what was going on next to you because the containment of the noise area. But I love playing in Melbourne. Every game I played in Origin in Melbourne or games I played in Melbourne, I played okay. So I actually really enjoyed the, I suppose, the theatre down there.
Yeah. And that year you played for Australia. You played against France, 24 mid-season tests. So within 2 years, you've gone from playing at Dapto in the Dapto ground track, in the middle of Dapto ground track, to be playing at the MCG in front of 100,000 and playing for Australia. Like that's not. Freddie hit the scene with the bang. You just done it a couple of years later, but that's for a couple of years you've achieved just about everything.
Yeah, and it was good achieving it from my hometown too. Like when I look back at my career, I got offered to move a lot of times for good money, and I chose not to. And payback's tenfold because I have never had to move my family. I've lived in a town that I love. I played for a club that I wanted to. And I got paid well enough to be wealthy. But the sense of achievement, really, when you're playing it, you don't seem to enjoy it as much until you look back at it. When you talk about that, it does probably hit more than I think of it on my own.
I think too, like, cause it's, I remember speaking to Trent Robinson when they, after the grand final, just wanted to tell him, I get on good with Robbo, but I just rang him congratulating him on going back to back. How hard that is.
Yeah.
Like, as a player, and I played 3 Origins, if I could have achieved play for Australia, like these things are massive goals. Yeah. And you've done them just straight out the box. Yeah. and it's with us nature in footy and probably to play it down and not give yourself a pat on the back. But when you sit and look at it, that's pretty good. Right time, right place maybe, and playing with good players along the way and the success of Steelers out in 92 probably kicked me in. I think in Origin, when you win and you're playing okay, consistent at clubland, and you've got the same coach, you're pretty well guaranteed the following year back then. So when I got in there, keep winning to keep.
In 93, 94, the Steelers weren't going as well as they were in 92. So I really looked at that as my time to shine, to make things as well. So when I got in that arena, I was more ready for it than I was in 92. And every year you play, you get more comfortable with it you know, you get a bit older, so you get a bit wiser, but you get more comfortable because you know that you've been here, you've done it. It's time to go again.
Yeah. Now, speaking about getting offers at other clubs and getting paid well, weren't we all paid? Or wasn't all the players played well when this next event, Super League, breaks? Being in Newcastle, I know Dad was involved. I was only a teenager, but it was huge up there. How did that change your life?
Instantly.
Yeah.
For not needing to go anywhere and then becoming wealthy pretty well overnight with a signed cheque to stay loyal. So it was pretty strange. I'd been on the tour in '94, so I was lucky.
So you're just saying what was thrown in front of you? It was just mind blowing.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Did you have any idea, like the ballpark of what they were going to be offering?
Definitely not.
When they say this,
and nowhere near where it started to where it finished. Like it just went crazy, which I'll get to in a little. I don't mind sharing a little bit, but. So in '94, we'd just come back from a kangaroo tour, and there was talk about it when we were away. But I didn't know too much, and I didn't really have a manager back then because I was comfortable with doing it myself down in the Gong. I didn't really want to leave town, and then the ARL asked me to come up, Wishy to come up because we were the two kangaroo tourists from the year before. So we drove up there.
And obviously, if they can get you two signed, a lot of the boys will.
That's their thought process, yeah. So they offered us a couple of 100,000 loyalty, and then guaranteed, a certain amount of money for the next 5 years if you stayed.
So what? Just a couple of 100,000 just to sign then and there?
Yeah, like it was a loyalty check, and then
I need one of them with me, missus.
This is too good. Yeah. And I was really like, wow. Where's all this? What's going on here?
Is this like what? Are you waiting for like a cat? Like,
well, there was a few people in the room that were very.
So when you're going up there,
businessman-like.
Do you think you're going to? Are you thinking you're walking into a meeting where you're going to be offered a contract, or you don't?
Well, I thought there was enough talk around and in the media that people were starting to be offered to sign contracts, and they were going to start at the top and work their way through. So anyway, Graham Murray's our coach back then, and he said, "Look, mate, I want you to Super League want to have a meeting with you at Wollongong Whale Spas. So Wollongong, just on the salt water there at the beach, in the room upstairs." So I'd met the ARL. Now I was going to meet the Super League, and I said, "Look, I really committed to the ARL without signing anything." He said, "Don't worry about that. What do you want?" And I'm just going, okay. So, and there was very influential people.
So
in this meeting.
You hadn't signed yet?
I hadn't agreed. But I was smart enough not to do that. Yeah. And then I spoke to Bradley Clyde at the time, and George Mimas was in his management. And I said, look, this is getting too complicated for me. So I signed George, and he sorted it out from there. And let's just say I owned the house within a month. Back then, it was just like, and I stayed with the ARL. I stayed with the ARL because I wanted to stay in Wollongong with the Steelers, and Bob had committed to the ARL at the time, and that was a really deciding sort of situation for me. Where and ARL back then was established for 100 years.
Yeah.
And it was a great game. You know what I mean? So I think the logic behind what I'd done was town and game.
Yeah. Mate, then after that, you become the merger with the Dragons. So obviously, the club you're playing for and your team you supported as a kid. What was the original feeling amongst the Steelers players, and how was that all received from the Illawarra side? About merging with another team.
It was complicated, to be totally honest, at the start, because they had two teams that were merging. So I think the cap back then was around $4.5 million. So you put them together, it's 9. People off contract that year either had to go or they had to get rid of people. But they basically gave, I think, the club then about 12 months to get it right. So you can imagine two football teams merging together, and egos, but good egos, because strong about their character and what they believe in themselves. 100%, because a lot of them were representative players, and to bring them together, Corny and I got, Mark Corn and I got named joint venture captains. Yeah. So they sort of had a captain from that side and a captain from this side. But, you know, in the end, it come down to you had to fight hard for your position.
Yeah. Well, how does that go? Because you're obviously the big dog from your team, from the Steelers. And obviously, for this stage of your career, you've been one of the best centres in the world for a long, long time. How was it for the younger blokes? Was it sort of like they would come to you to ask you to speak up for them, or did they think, well, St George are getting more favoured in the positions or spots? Did you find it hard not to, like them little, whenever there was an argument or something at training or a robust discussion, did it ever fracture into those? Back to your little cliques, Illawarra and St George.
Yeah, I think it did at times, but I just tried to influence in an encouraging way and be truthful about the whole thing, because for argument's sake, Corny was the right centre. Yeah, I was the right centre. Yeah. So you had the two captains going for the right centre. So that was just like me and him going for that challenge. You know what I mean? And you had the other ones like Nathan Blacklock and Rod Wishart. Yeah. Like Blacklock was on his way up, and Rod Wishart was a 22 Test player. Yeah. You had Brad Mackay at lock forward, or Wayne Bartram, both had played for their country. Yeah. It was like good competition in different spots, and you had young blokes like Thompson coming along against Andrew Hart, who were up and comers. You had Craig Fitzgibbon against Thompson. You had the young guys coming through weren't such a problem, because the young guys just wanted to be part of a good team.
Sort of play.
And the young guys were like Craig Fitzgibbon, who was always going to force his way in the team because he was too good. Yeah. Luke Patton, who was always going to force his way in the team because he was too good. Yeah. So they were the younger guys coming through. Ben Hornby was a year away from that, but he was under the surface. So them guys were all from Wollongong. So I did have a bit of an influence on them guys, but it was in a way that didn't have to worry about it too much, because they were going to get themselves in a footy team,
Well, was it hard? And I know it's St George, Illawarra, but to lose the Steelers
identity,
the logo, that must have been tough.
Yeah, it was. It was more tough.
And how and just for not only for individually, but the community, how did that?
Yeah, I think. Look, players are resilient, mate. They get on with things quickly. Yeah, like we just do. You do, because what you do is you form new friendships and new beginnings, and what happens there, you spend enough time with each other, you become close mates, and the dickheads really work themselves out, don't they? And they're pushed to sides. Yeah, it's a great level. So the hardest thing is the community is not as forgiving. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I feel that it was at 10 paces at times with the communities. Illawarra, definitely, there was people that talked to me about it, that they had lost what they felt that was their identity, their team, their town. Yeah. But I always convinced them, because I knew what the right thing was. If we didn't merge at the time, we wouldn't have survived financially. Yeah. So for me to keep rugby league in the town was to do my very best to make it work. Yeah. Because I didn't want to lose footy out of Wollongong, and whether it was half the games is better than no games. So for me, it was a feeling of, you've got to get this right. I don't know how you're going to do it to yourself at the time, but you've got to deal with this and get it right, because this is your town, and I don't want footy to be left out of Wollongong. And I worked pretty hard in the round. Corny done as much as I did in his side. Yep. Mate, the guys, we started the year slow. We started.
Well, this season was fantastic, but was the finish.
It was horrible to start with.
Yeah, but you must have gelled pretty for a short period of time. Because when was the merger official? So he's only come together just like a normal pre-season.
Yeah, in the end of '98.
So that's usually hard enough when you're with your same team and you just go again into you're going in with new teammates, new coaches.
Yeah, it was
new home grounds, new facilities.
Yeah, it was certainly all that. Trained 1 week in Sydney, 1 week in Wollongong, 2 days in Sydney, 2 days in Wollongong, 1 day in Wollongong, 1 day in Sydney. Mixed it all up, throw it all in the mix. It wasn't the same. It was completely different. Logistically, it was very difficult. Instead of going to train and 5 minutes away, most guys were then jumped in a car. Well, Rob Wishart was travelling from Gerringong, which is an hour and 40 away. So it was different. But, mate, sometimes when the talent comes together and you want to achieve something, it gets done. And that year was a very talented footy team. Like, you come to the end of the year. We started the year slow. I don't think that was a surprise to many. We lost our first 4 or 5 games, and then we really got in. And at stages that year, we were unstoppable. We won 18 of 20, or I don't know what it was back then, but it was a lot of games consecutively. And then we got to the finals. We got in sixth spot. We got in sixth spot.
Melbourne first week.
Yeah, we beat Melbourne by 30 in Melbourne, which was pretty hard to do.
They were tough to beat down there.
Yeah, and
you smoked Cronulla, I think, in the
we beat Cronulla.
That's
we beat the Roosters.
That's when the circus come to town, Nathan. There's backflips and forward, but they were on fire. You were on fire.
Mate, he was,
because the Cronulla were the minor premiers.
Correct.
And you just blew them off the park. Obviously,
but it was finals footy. Come then, right? So Cronulla was always, unfortunately, known not to get it done until they did. But, the talent across there. But everyone talks about the GF and the loss, and we'll probably get to that. But leading up to that grand final, Anthony Mundine and Nathan Blacklock, but Anthony Mundine especially, was pretty well untouchable.
Yeah, he was.
He was just doing things that won us games. And it was just so good to be a part of that wave. And even though I was at the back end of it, I was 31 or 32, and I was a lot slower than I was 10 years prior to it. But to be a part of that and forge new friendships in such a short time, and get on that journey up until the end was a really good time. Mate, it was emotional. It was dramatised. The penalty try to lose it. But, geez, it was an enjoyable ride,
We'll talk about that grand final, and it's obviously remembered for the penalty try with Craig Smith and Jimmy Ainscough coming across.
Another good player, Jimmy Ainscough, good player.
Jimmy Ainscough, I remember when he was at Newcastle. Jimmy was in reserve grade one year. My dad was coach. We were back at the Cricketers' Arms. And I remember he'd sit me up next to me and be playing the pokies. He loved the pokes.
Oh, I love him.
He'd get me a red lemonade, and I was calling red or black for him. He goes, he said, Vin, I'm that bad to run punting. He said he needs someone to help. Yeah, I was 10 years old. I was red, black, spade club. That's where a lot of my problems come from.
Yeah, it might have started.
But that game, you're leading 12-0 at half time, isn't it?
Yeah, 14, I think.
14-0, yeah. And it's not only, and Eddie Mcgregor set a great call when they got beat by the West Coast Eagles a few years ago in the grand final. The Magpies led for all but 5 minutes of the game. And he said, we've led for 115 minutes, and now we're going to be behind for eternity. You boys were ahead for 75 minutes.
Yeah, 77.
7 minutes, and now you're going to be behind for eternity. And for anyone who's played footy, and I'm grateful I know that we got taken off with the Storm in 09, but I lost 2 in a row, 03 or 4, and it just eats away.
Oh, it's hurtful, mate.
It's awful.
It's emotional, it's hurtful.
Yeah, and it's not only did you lose, you just were dominant for the whole game, and it could have been 20-0 at half time.
Yeah. Well, they talk about the
just all over them.
That could have been.
Chalk knocks on over the line with a couple unmarked.
Yeah, and that was a big, obviously, turning point in everyone's eyes, but not in mine, because I Chalk had done that prior and got it done. You know what I mean? He was on fire, so
back him.
You got to back the situation there, but there's a lot of things that happened in that game that. And I never want to blame officials, but there was a few decisions.
Oh, yeah, damn right we can blame officials.
There's a few decisions that were a little bit sketchy at times. But
and then
look, you've got to give Melbourne some credit here. They just come together too.
Yeah.
A very young club. And to get success so quickly and to bounce back from a fair defeat,
couple of weeks
before, and a fair.
You
coming
smashed,
from
you
behind at
smashed
half
them down
time.
there,
They were still down by that at half time. We had a few injuries that probably knocked us about a little bit. But the hardest thing about that game, besides never being able to replay it, was the players that left after that. There were some really good name players that didn't play after that. Your Brad McCoys, your Rod Wishards, your Mark Coynes. They're guys that are legends of the game, have played a lot of footy for their clubs, and not to be able to play another game of footy and finish on that, and watching Lazo do cartwheels on the other side after winning 5 pissed me off as well. But
it's not like it's a penalty try, and yes, it's a penalty try, but it's a penalty try. It's hard to.
Yeah,
it
well,
must have been awful watching that replay, knowing it's going to be a penalty try.
Yeah, it was going to be.
Yeah,
like,
but just what
there's no denying what happened.
That's Chinese water torture, you know. It's like you'd rather point to the spot as soon as you scored. Now we're watching 12 replays and dragging it out, knowing everything you've worked for, especially at the back end of your career.
Yeah,
is just
taken away. Yeah. That decision was the correct decision.
Yeah, 100%.
But there was a few things leading.
And that's how hard GFs are. Not only is it's hard enough just to get there. The 26 rounds, injury, suspensions, form. Then you get there, and you still need some luck on the day. You need some 50-50s to go your way. You know,
yeah, you do, mate.
You know, it's a hard thing to achieve.
There's a lot of things that you need to work out for you, and it's even harder probably when you're a coach, but as a player, you know, you've got to be fit at the right time. You've got to have people around you that have built combinations over the period of time. You've got to have decisions go your way on game day. You know, you can't have anything that's of a big influence taken away what controllable sort of thing, you know, taking away what you need to get done. You know, and then on that day, and that one day, and every minute of that one day, it's got to work for you, you know what I mean? Otherwise, you come away. But there's always got to be a winner and a loser, and I've always looked at, you know, sport or anything is you go out to win everything, but understand that there's only going to be one person that walks away from it, you know, and I've got a bit of an understanding of that, but there was grown men crying, mate, because they'll never get that opportunity again.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not too sure is this is folklore or legend, and if it was involving me, I'd say it's definitely legend because I tend to lie with all of my stories. But knowing you, Mary, you're a straight shooter. I heard that you actually retired in 01, like officially. 01?
Well, I actually retired in 99.
This one, you'd retired in 99, I'd heard. And somehow you got re-signed again.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on the story of how you got re-signed? Is that true?
You obviously know the story. Yeah. What happened in 99, I had done my shoulder through 99, pretty bad. I just rehabbed it and got it right to keep playing because I thought, well, at the end of the year, if it's no good, I'll retire. I was 31. I had a year to go on my contract. The joint venture was trying to get the cap down from, you know, close to 9 million down to 4.5. You know, I'd been pretty well happy with what I'd achieved besides winning that grand final. Anyway, when I went to the specialist after the end of the year, they said, "Oh, mate, look, it's banana skin. We're not going to be able to repair it unless we take a lat off your back and redo it." And I just said, "Oh, well, that's not going to happen. Just go in there." And so they left you know, pretty well. They fixed it, but they didn't fix it enough to play contact sport. So I went and at that time it was John O, I think, was the CEO. I said, "Look, mate, I can't play." So we negotiated a contract which was really fair for the club and myself at the time. I could have just stayed there and said claimed it, but I didn't want to do that. Anyway, rehabbed it all of the 2000, and it become quite strong. I had a lot of time on my hands. I was building my house, so the house we're in right now in 2000,
which is beautiful, by the way.
Which in 2000. So had a mate of mine. He's still a friend. He's still a club sponsor, CBC and Morelli, who was helping me build my house, and I was just on the tools every day. Anyway, this one day I was on the roof, working on the finishing off the roof, and the boys turned up in a bus. It was Mad Monday. And they pulled up out the front, and they come over and said, "Let's go." And I said, "Oh, no, I've got to stay here." And the tradies go, "No, you can go. See you later." So I hopped in the bus, and we went. Back then we get on a bus or go up to the further south, which is Scarborough, and work our way back down the escarpment. Anyway, so we went up there, and 5 beers in, 7 beers in, 10 beers in. Back then, you done a bit of wrestling and a bit of you're tackling on the ground and outside, and 15 schooners in. I thought it was a good idea that I joined in.
With the dodgy shoulder.
Dodgy shoulder. We'll give it a test out. It actually felt really good.
How long since you'd made any contact prior to that being on the piss?
Grand final.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it felt really good. So the conversation could come around because I had a really poor
I know
year.
why I felt really good, because you've had 20 schooners under your belt.
That helped. But I was pretty confident because I was doing a lot of things like normally, like, you know, in the gym and on the site and stuff. But I was more confident after schooners, obviously. But anyway, so what happened after that was, it was a pretty good thing. It was, the boys said they had a bad year in 2000. Can you come back and play? And then and Dowsey had actually just taken over as the CEO, and he said, "Would you come back and play?" And I said, "Yeah, where's the coaster?" So I'm mucking around, you know, just signing coasters. But it got pretty serious not long after that, and they asked me would I do it. I had to get a medical, obviously, cleared the medical, and went in and played 2001 and finished that year in the finals. We got beaten by Brizzy in the finals that year, but yeah, look, it was only match payments. It was no sign on. It was just match payments. But it was a good time. I wasn't captain, so I was just
enjoying footy.
Yeah, I was playing in the playing group. I was 33, turning 34. But you know, smart enough to get around the park without being, you know, as good as I was.
So you're telling me you're going for a beer with the boys on their Mad Monday, and out of that you've got a contract.
100.
Was that the same selection panel that the Dragons got now that went, you know what, this bloke has his shoulders rat shit. Let's get him a start.
No, definitely not. But I obviously had to go through the medical side of it and the physical side of it, training. But you know, the footy side of it was never going to really be too much of an issue, other than I was getting a bit slower. Yeah.
That's outstanding. Now we go into coaching after you retire, mate, and briefly get to all things about coaching, but we'll just talk about this year. How hard was it this year with the circumstances of the year, in terms of coaching and preparing with the corona and the bubble and all those things? And again, the lack of depth in squads.
Yeah, look, it was definitely harder with COVID and the restrictions around what you can and can't do on the well-being side of it to players. You know, 2018 was a great year for us, and we really built. We did a game away from the grand final, and I thought 2019 was going to be something special, and it didn't work out. You know, a few things happened. Starting with Gaz deciding to...
did that have a bigger impact than you thought?
Yeah, huge. Because we'd built a team around him and Jack DeBellin, who was the other guy that...
so you lose both of them?
We don't lose Gaz, but we lose Jack. And then 2 games in we lose Gaz. Anyway, we won 4 of our first 6.
So see, things like that... Sorry to interrupt you, Mary. Just from outside looking in, who... You know, I think I've got a pretty good grasp on footy, and you know when players are injured, but it's not only their presence, but it's actually, like you're saying there, your whole club's been built around the way you play.
Yeah.
So it's not only just having them out there, it's...
No, they were very influential.
Your whole game plan's built on these 2 players' specific talents.
Yeah, and players brought in around them specific talents. And they were 2 of our leaders. One was our captain. You know, and Jack was our glue in the middle third of the field with the footy. He could change momentum with and without it. We brought James Graham in for leadership in 18 and it worked really well. And we're going into 19 very confident that we could get this done. And then a few things we got sidetracked by a couple of things and in the end we won 4 of our first 6. So I got re-signed for a 2-year contract after a good 18 and a good start to the year. But it really went... south from there, and the reason it went south from there, we didn't really do well enough in a few areas. Yeah. So we thought we learned a lot from that. Changed a bit of staff around coming into 20. Thought the obviously Jack thing would be finalised. It wasn't. Had Normie there to replace Gaz, and we were coming into 20, ready to bounce back from a poor 19. We lost our first two, which we should have won both.
Yeah.
And everyone could have or should have, but we were really in a dominant position against the West Tigers in round one. Yeah. We didn't finish off a couple of opportunities, like probably 4 opportunities that we should have. And then the week after that, we were 16 points clear of Penrith in the second round. But we got run down in the last 5 minutes. They scored 2 tries in the last 5 minutes. So then COVID hit, so we were off.
Yeah.
So the pressure was mounting, obviously. From the outside noise, we didn't do well in 19. Start of the year with 2 losses. COVID hit. Everything was pretty abnormal, so to speak.
I won't go into Jack too much, but just we've had a little bit. I've had a little bit to do with the Origin, and we get on great. And I know Dad's worked with you, and Dad's got a massive opinion. And you're one of the most popular people I've ever come across in my time in NRL. And I understand as a coach, you've got to make tough decisions, but I know how much you are friends or mates with these boys. How hard was just that? Not what he's going through, just as a mate, but the coach. You're representing the footy club, but at the same time, you care for one of your boys. Yeah. Yeah,
Jack's. I'll always have a really close bond to Jack. He's the longest serving player at the club. Yeah. I coached Jack for 2 years in reserve grade before he played first grade, and I've seen him develop from a reserve grade player into a dominant Origin player, and he was on the cusp of being, it was in the top 3 middle forwards of the game, and he could have been, number 1 if he'd stayed. And I don't know what went on that night. I don't know, but I've obviously heard the side, Jack's side, and I haven't heard the other side. So it'll work itself out in time, But it was. It's been a difficult period. Elise is a beautiful person as well. So, but we've got to understand that we've got to learn and grow, and challenges are put in front of you for a reason. Sometimes you don't really know why, but you've got to move forward. So my idea was, I think round 10 in 19 really hurt. That's when they brought the no fault policy down, which is a rule that I just don't understand to the day. You're innocent and less proven.
Curtis Scott's situation was perfect. Imagine they rubbed him out. Just ridiculous.
So Jack's missed 2 years and he still hasn't had the outcome of court come up yet. So, but round 10 we played. Like I said, we won 4 of our first 6, and then we played, I think, the Knights in round 9 or in Mudgee, and it was the weekend that Jack. Obviously got told that
he stood down
for until the court case is finished, and our performance that weekend was diabolical, and we got beaten by 40, which my teams don't get beaten by that, mate, very often, and we're pretty hurt. And then we got a few injuries to follow that, and then the year sort of spiralled out of control, and we really finished poorly. And I feel that there's a lot about that no-fault policy that I don't like and still don't like, but it did have an effect on our team, and not using an excuse, because you got to be able to overcome certain difficulties, and and then on top of that with Gaz, but they're 2 decisions, because I was close to Gaz's family as well, like I'm Nicole, my wife, and Gaz's wife, are very good friends, Carly. So.
I taught Gaz everything I know. Back in Melbourne, poor old Gaz. We win in 09, so we go to England to start 2010. They bring Gaz along. He's a young kid then. He hasn't played first grade at this stage. They room him with me. We go for our...
Difficult?
Yeah, it was for him. It was. I had a great time telling him what to do. And anyway, I got on great with him. He was a terrific young kid. So he might be 20, 21, I'm 30. And I go, look, I'm going to have we're going out for a drink. I said, mate, if you probably want to get some rest, might want to look to bunk in another room, because when I come home, I'm like, that's not it.
I'm alive.
That's not my night over.
I'm alive.
I get home, I order like 30-odd vodkas from the room service, and I know the bill's going to be horrendous. The room. I go to Gaz, we're packing up to leave London. I go, Gaz, can you just go down and get the bill for me? like Gaz is on nothing at that stage. He gets down as like 950 pound or something. Just from the one night, he comes back, and I knew. And I could see him walking around, like he wanted to tell me something, but didn't know. So I said, "What's wrong? What's wrong, Gaz?" And the roles reversed when I come back from England, and they won in 2012. We went back over there, except this time he was starting 5'8", and
he's tight too, Gaz. He wouldn't
have been happy.
No,
but he's tight when he's on $800,000 a year. Imagine when he was on $800. But I know, Mary, you're not, and I'm not here to try to talk just to say anything bad about anyone, because I know you're not like that. But from my point of view, from outside looking in with the decision around you this year, it looked like you were more than happy to take the blame and bullets as a head coach, but just from my point of view, that you were taking criticism for things that you had no control over. Like some selections and signings to the club. Yeah. Which I know not there. I just see that as a...
Yeah, look, accountability's got to be strong at the top. And I've taken accountability for our results. And that's full stop on that one. We didn't do well enough in 19. We started the year poorly in this year. The COVID stopped, and when we lost our next 2, but then we won 4 of our next 6, and we're actually improving a fair bit. But there was still decisions that I wasn't comfortable with going forward, and they were around the selection panel, which I don't think any coach that holds the responsibility of a result would be happy of other people
doing that,
choosing their team, and the coaches weren't. Happy with that either, but it was a role that they'd been given from the board. And obviously, I think a selection panel is really, really helpful, and I really feel that the conversation around a coach to assistant coach to a head coach is healthy when you discuss players and who should go where and that. But in the end, I just still feel that a coach has got to make the final selection. The coach that's
especially when you're head on the chopping block,
and at this stage it was pretty heavy chopping block, and then around the recruitment and retention, Ian's a good mate of mine, and I thought we built our roster really well, 17, 18, and Ian was a big part of that. But going forward, I wanted to have more input into what players we were going to get paid. And I took that to the board and what players we bring in, which I've always had a say in, but I mean more of a healthier say of how it all balances out going forward and what we have there and what change we need to make. And the change that I asked for, both got told that they wanted to keep exactly how it is right now. And I just thought I couldn't work under them circumstances. I had Dad that was very ill in hospital. My sister was really taking the load there, and she has been since Mum passed in 17 because of obviously the time consuming that rugby league is as a head coach. And if I wasn't part of the solution that I thought was the right way to go, they must have thought I was part of the problem. So if I'm part of the problem, I might rather be part of my dad's solution, which is give him time and family time. So it was time for me to move on, And I thank the club for the journey that I've been on.
You did everything at that club. You're the inaugural captain. You're one of the first big names when the club was formed. You strength and conditioning for a while. You're assistant coach, head coach.
Yeah,
we're going to be CEO next.
No. Look, and I'll
so it's been a big part of your life,
I'll do it all tomorrow. Yeah. It's 25 years, 29 over breaks, but and I've met some friends there that I'll have forever. I wish them the best. I've been watching the last month of footy. When the boys play, I missed the North Queensland game because I was away, but I've watched them closely, and I'm probably hurting as much as they're hurting at the moment, losing games, because I've just got a soft spot for them. I'll get away from that because I want to coach again. I want to be in the NRL. I've got unfinished business there. I know what I can achieve and what I need to achieve. At the moment, it's great to spend time with Dad. Yeah. He needs me. I'm still in good contact with with the players and that, because I've got good relationships there, and I'll help them in any way they need me to help them.
You're always so positive, Mario. Like when I'm in my job, my previous jobs at Fox or Nine, whether you'd won by 20 or lost by 20, you'd always sit and have a quick chat to me. Sometimes, I know being involved in footy, sometimes the last thing you want to do. Just talking about the pressure of this job, a first grade job, and the constant negativity from outside with the media and the social media. On top of that, you got your dad going through a pretty tough time. That must have been because people think, and this is not crying poor from a rugby league point of view, but people just think we've got the perfect life. We don't have any issues, and for a job you've had experience as much as anyone, and I did when I played. The plenty of arrows are flung our way. They feel they got their right to just load up on, and especially at the Dragons. Anyone at the Dragons, because there's such a big following. So you're not only dealing with that, you're dealing with a personal matter with your dad. Geez, that must have been energy consuming and time consuming.
Yeah, I think 17 was very hard. In 17, when I lost Mum mid-year, we were top 4, and it was halfway through the year, and I watched Mum go through 4 months of not getting out of bed. That was really difficult. Yeah. And taking Dad to hospital, every afternoon, see Mum. That was a tough time. Really, my sister's looked after Dad since 17 because he's been living granny flat in behind my sister, and Joe's been looking after him. Joe and Paul, the husband's been looking after him really well. Nicole, my wife, especially of late. But you do sacrifice a fair bit, but it's always been a privilege to coach. I know there's pressures, but it's never been an obligation for me. It's something I enjoy, and time consuming. It's not. It goes so quick because you're enjoying what you do. I've got a real passion for the game. I've got enthusiasm. I love the routine. I love the discipline of it. I love.
And you're talking about he couldn't get yourself in the gym early in your career. Like you're one of the fittest blokes I know in terms of your just being involved.
I like it now.
Just some of the times I've worked with you when you were a trainer in the Origin. Just the drive and enthusiasm. You'd lead the sessions.
And it's
which got everyone on board.
I think you adapt, don't you? Like in anything, it's whether you got a family problem or you're in a different crowd. You just adapt, and I always found myself that I enjoyed being around others' company that I could learn from or I could teach, and that's something I love about coaching. You become an educator, and it's not only about rugby league. Like we all know rugby league. We can sit here and talk hours about rugby league, and there's not too much difference between the coaches, but the thing you can do for people's lives, and that's the most important thing. And you see people debut, you see people make their first rep jumper, you see people buy their first house, you see people get married, you see people have kids, and you're a part of that family, extended family. And for me, it's a great way to be. Although it does affect your own family because of the time consuming it is, but you're still helping someone.
Mate, I've always thought, like, sometimes when you might play with a bloke who's really good, but he's a dickhead, and you put up with him because you want to win. I always say that, like, I made more errors than anyone, but my teammates gave me a pass because I was popular amongst the group because they know I trained hard. I may have missed the tackle. It's not because I didn't want to miss it. I just missed it, Or I come up with an error because I was trying. Mate, one of the most emotional things I've seen, one of the most inspiring things I've seen this year was the game when your last game as coach for the Dragons. When Cameron McGuinness, like, he couldn't obviously see what was being said, but he presented in you his jumper. Now, results are great, and it's a results-based business, but at the end of the day, like, that's what he thinks as you as a bloke. That's pretty special, and I've never seen that happen ever in the game before. Like, that's as unique as it gets.
Yeah.
Because
Not for a
you know
departing
because when a departing coach comes in and you know you've been there, the players take a step back and go, "Well, it's him, not us."
Yeah.
And you know the house was on fire and Cameron McGuinness come to you, you know, and like the wins and losses are great, but when all said and done, that's what he thinks is you as a bloke. Yeah. That's a pretty amazing tribute.
I think that night was special in a lot of ways because there's a lot of talk around that the players were off the coach and the coach wasn't getting it done.
Well, it's just a natural thing when you
lose it. But I think that night showed everyone that,
of course,
that it's just more than coaching at the moment with what needs to be done.
And the way they lifted for you.
They beat a side that was running second. They gritted it. They toughed it out. You know, and I had conversations with everyone that played that night, and all the boys that didn't were in the squad that didn't play come as well. So they're all on the bench, and I sat on the bench, which was the first time because I always thought the field was a player's domain, and I had my time out there, so I sat in the box. But if I coach again, I'll get down there more often. It's actually really a good feel to it. It's you shouldn't so much coach on game day. Yeah. I think the work needs to be really done through the week, and it's over to the players on game day. And the assistants have seen enough from the box, but the coach can get pretty well, you know, in the emotional side of it, but the nice side of it, there's a different side of it down there on the sideline, and you know, a bit like stick going crazy at times, but it
that's
shows
the worst
what
thing
you're
when Stick
about.
was on the sideline. I could hear him spraying me from the sideline.
Yeah, but it was enjoyable. It was a really enjoyable night, and a lot of good conversation. But obviously, Cam's one capped it. You know, I've got a lot of good gifts along the way, but that was one of the nicest things that could be said or done in the circumstance it was under. And I'm getting it actually framed at the moment, the game ball and Cam's jumper, and it'll go up nice and proud. I've got building a cabin down the coast right up against the bar down there. So I can't wait till it's finished off. But he'll be a person that I'll have a relationship with for a very, very long time. He typifies how the game should be played. He plays it the right way. And he's a person...
Yeah, and that's the thing too. If it was someone else who was a bit of a hairy fairy player or not a tough bastard, you'd be going, "Oh, thanks, mate. This is going, he's going straight to the shit house." But there's what type of player he is, like, you know, that.
Well, he knows what I'm asking from a player.
Yeah.
I think he understands what type of player I feel that the club need to have to get the job done, and he shows that every time he plays, and he's a footballer, not a positional player, and now that doesn't happen these days, mate. Like, people will tell you I'll play where you want, but they don't really want. And they'll explain to you, yeah, it's okay, and then they'll walk away and it's not okay, and you sort of get that feel straight away when you do that. With Cam, there's never a feeling. It's just like, yeah, right, I'll get it done.
Well, Mary, I want to thank you for your time today, mate. That was very insightful, and appreciate your opening and honesty. Thanks for bringing us down here and let me in your house, because these days, not many people invite me over these days. It's not about me coming over. It's about the fact I never leave. Yeah. But, mate, thanks for having us here. And that was fantastic. We really appreciate it and look forward to catching up with you sometime.
You're a good man anytime. Thanks, mate. Good on you.
Cheers, mate.